how's it going? Let's talk about a topic today. Vince. Let's talk about a topic that's been on my mind recently, and kind of want to share it. It relates to philosophy, spirituality, and some physics. Those are three topics that like to be intertwined, very common. So you look at the works of Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You look at Immanuel Kant. You look at all the great thinkers. You look at even if you look at sort of Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, sort of those guys, Ignatius of Loyola. They start looking at those sort of metaphysical sort of topics that really make you think. And this is one that kind of combines all three of these sorts of things, with science, with spirituality, and a little bit with philosophy as well. So, by being a little bit of a mathematician and a teacher, I'm trying to find a way to sort of dissect this and break it down a little closer to you guys. So, this topic here, can you see? So Einstein and the everlasting light. Brief lecture, just going to talk about it. And I'm going to subtitle it, The Photon versus the Christion. So a lot of you, I'll talk about these two words, so are actually one of all these sort of three common things. Einstein was a famous physicist in the early part of the 20th century, famous for the equation E equals mc squared, which talked a lot about traveling through waves, traveling through time, and the constant of the speed of light. We're talking about everlasting light here. Everlasting light is the thing that you might encounter in a lot of spiritual texts, particularly in the book of Genesis in the Bible, which is, in the beginning, there was light, right? Or in the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was part of God. The idea of constancy, the idea of something created, possibly out of nothing. So we're sort of combining and looking at these two ideas that Einstein started out with versus the idea of everlasting light that you'll see in Scripture. Now, with that, we'll look at the photon, which is something that Einstein sort of theorized about, and we'll look at the Christion. The Christion is just another name for a Christian. It's a more antiquated version of it. And I'm playing off the writing scheme, a photon versus Christion here. So what is a photon? A photon is actually a light particle. So when you see light, when you see the light over the kitchen stove, you see the light over the light here, it's because of a photon, right? It's because the photon is able to radiate or move out quickly and you're able to see something as a result of it, right? The photon moving up and down creates some sort of energy wave or energy imbalance, and you see things, emissions of visible light, right? Light comes in a lot of different wavelengths and wave spectrums. We see visible light, red, orange, green, yellow, blue, violet, and whatnot. And that allows us to actually see and distinguish between different colors around the world. So the photon actually, believe it or not, is a limited space. Limited dimension. Massless. And it has dual properties. A particle and a wave. Limited space, what do I mean? Photon, or collection of photon, collection of light particles can only occupy a certain amount of space, a certain amount of things. So you flash a light down to Mercury, or down to Venus, or down to my neighbor next door. Only a certain amount of it can occupy that space. That's why I say that the next galaxy is blank light years away. It takes light such a long time to get there because it has a limited space, a limited amount of dimension that it can go. Similarly, it has a limited speed, right? Light can only go 3.8 times 10 to the 6 meters per second. That's what Einstein conjectured. So light can only go so fast. It has a limited space, limited dimension. So it has sort of these sorts of things that make it almost seem human. It has a finite element, right? Next, light is massless, and it has a dual property or a certain dimension. What do I mean? Light is massless. It actually doesn't take up any space, right? So you can shrink light to as small a dimension as you can, and you can always find light particles that are smaller than it. Right? And similarly, it also can behave like a particle or can behave like a wave. So it can go really fast, or it can just stick in one kind of place, depending on how you look at it. Which means that it sort of obeys its own kind of laws. It's kind of uncertain. It's not reliable. You can't always sort of count on it being a very predictable sort of thing. In addition, light, as Einstein said, obeys this equation E equals mc squared. So it has an additional constraint to it. So in addition to being uncertain with dual properties, massless, having a limited dimension and limited space, it has to obey this equation in space and time. It lives in space and time, and the energy of an object has to be equal to the mass times the speed of light multiplied by itself. So light has a constraint on it. It can only do certain types of things. This is its universal property. This is the thing that light worships, the photon itself worships here. And because of that, it is limited. And it has a limited view and a small provincial view of the universe, and it must obey the universe and the laws and property and the chaos of the universe, the big bangs, the warp speeds, and all of such that result from it. Now, we go from light to the Christion. So the Christion is a light that is and was and will always be. We hear in Jeremiah 31:3, I have loved you with an everlasting love, therefore I have drawn you with love that will last for eternity. A future love and a past love and eternal love. So again, this love itself does not have limited space, does not have limited dimension, it is not massless. It is, it was, and will always be. This is a love or light above lights. The next thing we're going to look at, this light is constant in meaning. It is an everlasting love. As it says in John, in the beginning was the Word, and in the end was the Word. This is something of meaning, rooted in Christ being given as the everlasting news, the good news for the properties of the universe, obeying, going beyond E equals mc squared. So, when we look at this, we also understand that everything is meaningless. We learn this in the book of Ecclesiastes written by King Solomon, where it says everything is meaningless, time is meaningless, distance is meaningless, human beings are meaningless. We're all products of the earth, and we are ruts, and we'll ever be eaten by the worms that will take us down after we die. Right? But what isn't meaningless is the Lord above us. And that's what we have to understand, that we are of the world, but we are not a part of the world. Right? It's the Gospel of Matthew also says as well. So, therefore, as Ephesians says, the Christian, the light of the Christian, has to train himself in righteousness to go above the light of the photon, the uncertain properties of the light of the photon, the masslessness of the photon, the certainty of the limited dimension of the photon, and limited space of the photon, to embody the everlasting properties of the light and the value of the gospel message of 3:16 of John. This is a very different gospel that the Christian professes versus the light of the photon. Two different ways of looking at the world. The light of everlasting, the light of limitless. Thank you.